What is going on, guys, and happy Halloween to you. So, Ted Lasso coming at you. I'm Ted Lasso, I'm your new coach. So, this is going to be, looks like an hour. Yeah, an hour of the top 25 of the college football playoff. So, you know what the AP's done. The AP is consistent ranking throughout the season, but tonight is the initial rankings for the committee. So that is what we're going to get through today, and hopefully you guys enjoy. You got to look at the big players, which is your undefeated teams in Power Five, which is Ohio State, Michigan, Washington, FSU, Georgia. Oklahoma only has one loss, but it was to Kansas. Alabama only has one loss. So you're looking at that right there. And then we just have this coming in. So the initial 21 through 25, you've got 25 is Air Force, who's also undefeated, just not a Power Five. Number 24 is the Green Wave of Tulane. 23 is Kansas State, who's 6-2 on the year. Oklahoma State, the Cowboys at 22 are 6-2 on the year, and also 6-2 is Kansas, who comes in at 21 with that big win in Lawrence over Oklahoma this past weekend. So that is the initial Kansas, Oklahoma State, Kansas State. Oh, we're going right in. 20 is USC. So they drop pretty far. I think that kind of takes them out of playoff contention. USC is at 19, Utah at 18, Tennessee at 17, and then Oregon State at 16. All of those 6-2, with USC being 7-2. So for this to be an hour show, they are cranking through there fairly quickly. Kind of wild. So that is the first 10 in the top 25. Now, again, there's 4 to 5 weeks of games still to happen. So this isn't chaos can reign supreme. If we've learned nothing else, that can happen. And then we're going to go 15 to 11. So this will tell you a lot. Notre Dame is at 15, being 7-2. LSU at 14. I thought they would be a little bit higher. Louisville at 13, being 7-1. Missouri at 12. They have been kind of slept on the whole year. And then Penn State at 11. A lot of the people thought Penn State should be a little bit higher, at least in the top 10. The only loss coming to Ohio State. But they did not look good this past weekend. They did pull out the win, but not all that great. But Missouri at 12, they have been slept on a lot. They do have Georgia coming up. This coming weekend, they have to go to Athens and play the Dogs, who we will learn fairly soon if they're number 1 in the committee. Number 10 is Ole Miss, who also will meet Georgia. They're 7-1. That is after Missouri, but they have to go to Athens as well. So the next 2 weeks, Georgia will play number 12 Missouri and then number 10 Ole Miss in Athens. And then the week after that is number 17 Oklahoma is at 9, also a 7-1 team. So this may not be an hour. This may just be a reaction of an hour because they are cranking these out. So Oklahoma, again, with the loss to Kansas, would have been higher. Obviously, they would have been undefeated, especially with the win over Texas. Alabama at 8, about where the AP has them with the loss to Texas earlier in the season. But Milroe is doing pretty doggone good and is advancing. He's doing better every week. So that defense is still stingy and Saban's still Saban. So absolutely well within anybody in the top 10 can still probably get there if they win out. 7 is Texas, who has the win over Alabama, but does have the loss to Oklahoma, which is funny. Alabama lost to Texas. Texas lost to Oklahoma. Oklahoma ended up with the short end of the stick, losing to Kansas. So Oklahoma at 9, Alabama at 8, and Texas is at 7. So the top 6, we should know, is between Michigan, Ohio State, Washington, FSU, Georgia, and then who am I missing? Oh, Oregon. Oregon will probably be 6 because they do have a loss, but absolutely throttled Utah in Utah this past weekend. So pretty good, pretty good. You got McElroy talking about everything. The top 6 teams will be revealed coming up next. And I do believe that the commentators are for real. I don't think they see it until they put them on the screen for them. And I really don't think they see them until we do. So pretty solid. I figured that was the way that was going to go. I like that they have Air Force ranked in the top 25, rewarding undefeated teams. That's pretty good. James Madison is also an undefeated team in there. Um, in college football, they're undefeated. James Madison hasn't lost this year, so do want to give a shout out to them. And that's, I mean, we know the 6 teams. We just don't know in what order they are going to come. I'm almost for sure Oregon will be 6 because they are the ones that have the loss. The other 5 are undefeated. Um, and I guess we'll talk about that. And if anybody in the group wants to ask a question, go ahead. I will address that question. Sorry. So they're talking about head to head should absolutely matter. Duh. Head to head should matter. And I think they showed that putting Texas over Alabama. The head to head win. Texas went into Tuscaloosa and beat the Tide. So that I think the head to head matters very much so. And I think they proved that their head to head is going to matter in the top 6. Absolutely. And, the committee is stayed pretty, pretty on point with that throughout. Up here we go. Number 6 should be Oregon. I would be shocked if it's not. It is. So 6 is 7-1 Oregon. So Dan Lanning's done a great job going into Utah and doing what they did to Utah is incredibly difficult because that team doesn't lose at home. They beat USC. They did well. Washington is at 5. So the Pac-12 is the first team out, which is kind of surprising. I really thought with Penix doing what he's doing, second in the Heisman voting right now, or guesstimated Heisman voting, Heisman odds, I thought they would have them in. So you're looking at Georgia, FSU, Ohio State, and Michigan will be the 4 teams for sure. You're just looking at who's going to be 4, 3, 2, and 1. Now, the AP has Georgia at 1. I don't think the committee will do that just because they've had a little bit of close games. Florida State is at 4. I thought they would be at 3. So, interesting pick from them right there. I really thought that wouldn't, but Washington or Florida State would have been the first one out, is what I definitely picked. So, Oregon at number 6, 5 is Washington, 4 is Florida State. And let's be real. If you have 4 conference champions that are undefeated, they're going to go in because Ohio State and Michigan will play the game at the end of the year. And if they go on to win the Big Ten, and you have an undefeated Georgia win the SEC, an undefeated FSU win the ACC, and an undefeated Washington win the Pac-12, they're in. Michigan is at 3. Wow. That was who I thought was going to be number 1. You have to wonder if the investigation, all this allegations, everything. Georgia is at 2, so they've got Ohio State at 1. Georgia is at 2, so they'll look at the best wins have come with Ohio State over Notre Dame and then Ohio State over Penn State as resume. So Georgia is number 2 in the CFP rankings, and Ohio State's 1. So it's Ohio State, Georgia, Michigan, Florida State. The first 2 out going to be Washington and then Oregon, which Washington has the head-to-head over Oregon there. I'm really surprised that Michigan is down at 3. I am shocked that Michigan is that low. So I really, really thought, because they have just throttled everybody, but I guess strength of resume, strength of schedule matters. And you're looking at what Georgia has coming up, what Georgia has won, and then Ohio State with the wins over Notre Dame and the win over Penn State. Penn State being right there at 11 is where they had them. I think that is what gave the edge to Ohio State. So strength of resume, Ohio State's first, Georgia is 7th, Michigan is 9th. Strength of schedule, Michigan and Georgia both are way down. Key wins is Kentucky and Florida, who are both unranked for Georgia. Rutgers and Minnesota for Michigan, so that's where they're saying. But the 2 key wins is over 11 Penn State and 15 Notre Dame for Ohio State. That's why they're at 1. Again, this is the initial ranking. So what will matter is at the end of the year, if Ohio State can get over the hump and get Michigan for the first time in 3 years, they do have to go to the big house. And then we'll see what plays out with everything going on with this investigation for Michigan. We don't know what the Big Ten could do. We don't know what the NCAA could do if things are proven. Now, nothing's been substantially proven yet. We don't know. There's an investigation. Everything is up in the air because nothing's been proven. So it's all allegations. We don't know. We don't know what's going to happen. So thanks for joining in, and we will see you guys next time. So the first college football playoff rankings are out, and it is Ohio State at 1, Georgia at 2, Michigan at 3, FSU at 4. The first 2 teams out at 5 and 6 are Washington and Oregon, respectively. And again, Michigan and Ohio State will play at the end of the year. And if FSU goes on and wins the ACC undefeated, Georgia wins the SEC undefeated, the team that wins Ohio State, Michigan wins the Big Ten and is undefeated, and Washington goes on and wins the Pac-12 undefeated, the Big 12 champion will be out because they'll have 1 loss. There's a lot of football to be played. Chaos can reign supreme, and we will see you guys next time. But until then, Fam Jam, barbecue sauce.